Rolling! How's it going? Oh, look at the gray hair. Sometimes on these videos, it looks like my hair is really dark, but it's actually quite gray in certain light. I'm getting older, and that's just fine with me. Anyhow, how's everyone doing? I'm off on another water walk. Let's see how the water's flowing. Oh my god, it's just a trickle. Just a trickle. Yeah. Oops. Where are we now? I'm going to move this stuff. I got my knife and my hat. I installed, probably can't see, can you see that? There's a little valve here. Probably hard to see, but when I first started coming up here, I installed a little valve here. I did it in part, I guess I did it so that I can block it for water to come out. Because right now, if I just let it go, bloop, bloop, bloop. Well, it's coming out, but it's a bit trickly. Yeah. Whereas if I do that, it's faster. Not that I'm in a rush. Anyway, so Brendan, my comrade and friend Brendan in Australia, said, when are you doing another water walk? And I went, oh right, I haven't done one in a while. So I thought, okay, I better get to it. Because I have fans. You know. Anyway, I'm not sure what to talk about though. Although I do have an idea. I do have one thought actually. I shouldn't say I don't know what to talk about. Okay, so let's see now. On the environmental front. Well, Greta Thunberg's getting a lot of... You be able to see what I'm doing here? Anyway, Greta Thunberg's getting a lot of attention. And actually, I'm sort of skeptical of what appear to be more or less Facebook memes about the environment. You know? I just sort of like, well, I don't know. It just seems... Anyway. I always take it with a grain of salt, right? So with Greta, I wasn't sure. Oh, great, she's telling a whole bunch of adults off. Well, good for her. They need telling off, I suppose. But recently, I put this on my Facebook thing, and I saw her talk to more or less a discussion. Do you know what I mean? Like there were two other women, I forget their name. Is this mic working okay? Two other women. There's one woman hosting, and then two other younger woman, like girl, late woman, late teens or 20s, and then an older woman that has been active in that whole environmental thing for a long time, I think. Anyway, that was really interesting because I was really impressed with Greta, right? You know, she seems. I mean, I always thought she was she was being true to herself and all that. I never doubted that, but there's just this possibility of. So I'm washing out my funnel. This possibility of it just getting pulled into a big flurry of nothingness, right? But she's very, what word can you use other than humble? You know what I mean? She's relaying what she's learned, right? She's not a climate scientist. She hasn't spent her life up under the Arctic sea ice like Peter Wadhams has. She's saying what she sees. And it's very, very, it's great. Really, I'm really impressed. The thing is, at one point there was some meme, or however you want to put it, going out on Facebook about from her, but who knows really, right? Who knows wrote it? That's saying without gender equity, we cannot have climate justice. I'm like, that's way above her pay grade, right? And what you know, you get into things. What does that mean by equity? Because in some instances it's bullshit. In other instances it's very legitimate, I'd say. But that gets into that equality of opportunity versus equality of outcome debate. And of course I'm an equality of opportunity person to the core, right? So anyway, this isn't about that. So Greta was great. But the recent thing that I really wanted to mention, there's this premier in Canada. All the leader of the country is the prime minister, and the provinces, they're not called prime ministers, they're called premiers. Although in Quebec, I wonder, I can't remember. Maybe the premier in Quebec is called prime minister, which is ironic because premier is kind of a French word. Anyway, life's strange. Yeah, so this Premier Ford, right, is getting lots of attention. Kind of Trump, he's getting the same kind of meme attention that Trump gets, right? I mean, there's so much of it coming from all angles, from like my Facebook friends, which are more left-leaning, that I just don't know what to believe anymore. Like, it just sounds all... I'm sure most of it's true. I'm not saying that it isn't, but I'm like, well, let's just rag on about how bad someone is. And well, anyway, whatever. Anyway, we know that from Trump. So if you don't know this guy Ford, then you kind of know it from Trump, maybe. Here's my point. Anyway, so actually, I'm not at my point yet. Patience, my son, patience. So there's been these big floods in Ontario, near Ottawa, mostly, I think, but I think maybe even near Montreal, along the Ottawa River, right? Area, watershed, we'll say. My sister Robin's actually in Rockland, which is in that zone. She said, like, they've declared an emergency, and possibly lots of evacuations will happen. And, I mean, things flood at this time of year. It's right end of winter, right? But it seems somewhat on the extreme end, you know. And you get, I think there was one a couple of years ago. So there's these 100-year floods that happen every 2 years, right? So that's how you know it's, probably something to do with climate change. Anyway, so Ford, let me get to my point, if I can. Ford basically, he is or was in the area, and he said, he basically acknowledged climate change as an issue, right? I was like, what the hell? Because all the rhetoric going around about him makes it sound like he would never ever do that. I mean, he said, yeah, well, you know, I forget the words he said, but maybe I'll put a link to this thing on when I post this. Basically that, you know, we need to pay attention to it, and, you know, when we were young, the snow was this high, and now there's no snow, right? That kind of thing. I mean, he's no climate genius or anything, and I'm skeptical, but to me, it was extraordinary that he said this. Because of his political affiliations and all the ideological spin that within that sort of new conservative kind of bunch, right? I was actually really blown away. So, great. I mean, who knows whether it'll go anywhere, right? We don't know. But a couple things came to mind. One is, wow, wouldn't that be funny if Ford ended up being the climate change premier, you know? Because he did go on about how Ontario is ahead of most of the rest or most of the country in terms of environmental policies, right? I mean, he didn't put those policies in place. They've been in place. That's been happening for many, 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 many years, right? Anyway, but he's also been cutting things. So, right, and people have pointed that out, rightly so. It's like, well, he cut flood funding, like funding to fight against, I don't think that's the right word, fight, but you know what I mean, against flooding, and then 2 weeks later there's this huge flood. Anyway, irony. Well, he could have just said, well, shit happens, and then gone back to Toronto. But he didn't. That's huge, actually. But anyway, the main thing I'm trying to get to here is we have to be a little careful, I think, right? Because of everything's so divided politically, and in people's mind, people are so divided, right? Like, I think that we need to be really careful that even if a politician that we don't like, right? Oh, he's on the right and we're on the left. We don't like him no matter what he does, right? So I'm not saying that people are doing this. I mean, I'm sure some are, for sure, but you just have to be a little bit careful not to let our own ideological structures get in the way of seeing what's happening, right? So if Ford happens to, from this experience up near Ottawa of the floods, then changes something we could say for the better, then that should be acknowledged, right? Surely it ought to be acknowledged as a positive move, and not just like, we hate Ford, so whatever he does, even if it's positive, we don't like. Anyway, that's kind of my main point here. Because the ideological stuff is not going to help, because there's bigger issues, right? I mean, I have friends that are teachers, and Ford's been cutting schools and things, and mostly I read I see or read a one-sided story. Oh, do you hear that? Blip, 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 blip? That's because I opened the valve and now it's flowing down into the village. Yeah, okay, so I got that out in my meandering way. Cheers. The water's still flowing. It's hot as hell right now. It's like, well, I don't know, it's in the 40s, like 40, 41 in the city, and up here it's getting up to 32 at my place. But what's interesting is, at the moment, it's even at 6, 7 o'clock, it's still really hot, right? Like it's just hit 30, just under 30, which is unusual for here, I think. But maybe it's normal this time of year. Anyway, it does seem a little bit hotter this year. And definitely the drier aspect is continuing on longer than normal. And Gung was saying that because of the El Nino, I guess, they're expecting a drier year, which with dropping, there's a bunch of reservoirs and stuff, so those are dropping, I think, and stuff. And so it's always a concern for the farmers and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, 12 minutes. I feel like, okay, that's enough. But I always make these bloody videos like 30 minutes long. I probably make them that long so that no one will watch them. There's some sort of self-sabotage thing going on there. But anyway, getting the water. I was telling Gung about, there was this thing floating around my Canadian Facebook friends about these communities in Ontario. I think it was Ontario. Mostly native communities from what I could see, but hard to tell exactly, but probably mostly. Because there's water issues, right? It's the human rights catastrophe of no water. But I said to her, look, like when you look at the list, there's 2 that have a do not consume rating. And I'm like, just 2? Really? I would have thought it would be way more. And maybe it is more, right? Who knows about these stupid Facebook things, how much truth is in any of it. But I would have thought it'd be more, because there's quite, from logging and mining and all that, right? And it's just Ontario, obviously, not the whole country. But most of them were boil water advisories, right? I'm repeating myself now, so you can check out if you've heard me blab on about this. But I was saying, like, yeah, well, all these Canadians think the fact you have to boil your water is some kind of human rights catastrophe, right? And she just sort of looked at me like, like, what the hell? Okay, my friends Heidi and David, they have clean water coming out of the tap, but they have a well, right? So that's one thing, right? But if you live in Toronto and you've got clean water you can drink just straight out of the tap. And the other thing Gung was saying, she says, well, it's not just water you drink. It's water you flush your toilet with, or wash your car, or water your lawn with, right? And like, that's a lot of energy going into, into that. So that was the thing, right? So anyway, it somehow it gets in my craw about it, because great, you have water you can drink out of the tap. Fantastic for you. But that's really lucky, right? That's not some kind of right. That's you or whoever, a community, whatever, really lucky, right? Really fortunate, actually. So to my thinking is, I sort of think, well, first of all, let's state like, wow, we can drink the water out of tap. Aren't we lucky? Oh, these communities can't. Let's see if we can help them do it as well. Fair enough, right? But don't go around saying that's some kind of human rights catastrophe, right? That just makes me insane, because it's not. Anyway, yeah, but I can't really post it. Well, I do, actually. I do say things, and people are shocked. What? How can you say that? I'm like the richest person in Thailand. Well, maybe not. Anyway, like wealthier people now, or not, I wouldn't say wealthy, but more well-to-do middle class people are starting to get water filters in their house, right? And that's where you can draw water from the tap. But that's just for drinking. That's not your shower and stuff, right? Anyway, I think I should stop. I'm just repeating myself now. Grateful for water at all times. That's maybe the core of it all. I almost ran out of water this morning. I had this much left in my drinking jug. So I had to go this morning. But I have to go in the morning now. If I go in the afternoon, it's just too hot. Anyway, maybe I'll sign off and continue on with a bit of walking and hopefully not too much blabbing. And if I don't, I hope everyone's doing great. Ciao. 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 Okay, I'm back. Okay, I'm just going to do one more thing about the water. Okay. I'll probably do 100 more videos with this theme to it. Well, it's a water walk. And maybe I have a right to complain about my own country. Anyway, yeah, so on CBC they were doing something about water, and they showed some poor young fella man, like not a kid, had to walk 10 minutes to get his water, and he had a wagon. I'm like, oh, how freaking embarrassing. Like if I was on CBC and said, oh, poor Catherine has to walk 10 minutes to get her water, and she's like and she has to put it in a wagon. I'm like, what the hell? When my mom was in Bangkok, she walked 10 minutes to get her water, and she didn't have no wagon, and she didn't complain about it either. Well, now she has water delivered to her. They have a great system with water here. Well, that's the other thing, There's lots of ways to approach drinking water than what is typical in the West, right? And the fact that those ideas are just pushed aside, I don't think that's clear thinking. So there's lots of options here. They have this great system of water filter stations. You can just carry your water jugs. You can buy these 5-liter water jugs full of water and then just reuse them for a while. Anyway, and you just fill them up at the water station. I don't know, it costs like $1. I bought a liter. It's like 2 cents a liter or something. 3 cents a liter. Anyway, yeah, so there's lots of different ways of approaching things, And also here, at my mom's too in Chiang Mai. There's lots of butterflies out today. Here they have people go around. They fill water bottles, right? And they bring them. You can buy either 18-liter jugs or 1-liter bottles. And my mom gets the 1-liter bottles. Like a box of 24 costs 40 baht or something. Where she is, that works really well too. And they bring it to you and take the empties. And the bottles are like this thick plastic, the good kind of plastic, doesn't have all the junk in it, or so much, I guess. And yeah, works really well. And they reuse the bottles. There's no recycling foolishness going on here. They reuse the bottles. And people do that up here too. It's cheaper here actually. It's like, I don't know, maybe 15 baht. If I go get them myself, 15 baht for like a crate of 24 1-liter bottles of water. Yeah, so it's cheaper up here. Well, they don't, I think they filter it and maybe put some kind of cleaning thing in. Anyway, just options, right? And some people are starting to get water filters. That's a bigger expense, but in the long run might be cheaper and maybe more convenient. And anyway, I'm gonna switch this so you can see that. Here we go. Oh, wow. Ho ho. I'm not sure if that was a frog or a lizard. Maybe a lizard. Just took off and took these big leaps. There's lots of dried leaves on the ground at the moment. Probably all the trees that are going to drop their leaves have pretty much dropped them by now. I have a new guitar done. Put strings on it yesterday. Oh, it's really nice. I'm gonna do today's a video day, so I'm doing this water walk, and then I'll get home and start do a video tour of the guitar, and then take photographs, and then I'll probably do a little video of me playing it. But it's another Blanca, Flamenco Blanca. It's gorgeous. I put strings on it yesterday afternoon, and and tuned it up one more time, and then later in the evening, like 7:30, I started playing it. And I started freaking having heart palpitations from almost. It was so great playing. It's a real Blanca, right? It's the most Blanca I've done so far. It's a Blanca. It might even be a Blanca. I don't want to. I'll probably talk about this in the guitar video, but one reason I make flamencos as opposed to classicals, very similar, but I always think, flamencos are better for, if I was a pop singer or something like that, I wanted to get that nylon string sound, I would definitely go with a flamenco of some kind. For a lot of reasons, faster, lower action, and in terms of textures that might be more useful in some situations over classical. But in some situations the classical might be better too, so 6 to 1, half dozen the other. But if I was a pop singer and had to get one guitar, definitely I'd get a flamenco. And that's what I did. Not that I was a pop star, but my own compositions. Yeah. So I want to say that. Actually got some blue sky. It's nice. You can see that blue pipe? That's one of the pipes coming down from the streams that go into the big water holders down lower. Yeah, what if Ford becomes the climate change premier of Canada? The guy that changed it all. That would be so poetic. During rainy season, this bit of overflow can get quite heavy, you know? To be a bit careful scooting around that. Right now we're right near the kind of a catchment, would you call it? Let me just hang on a sec. Yeah, so this all the water ends up pooling into this big concrete thing. And then you can see these pipes leading out. And that heads down to some other, I guess they're big plastic tanks lower down. Brilliant. So brilliant. No power, I mean power needed for the materials, of course. But it's all gravity fed. You know what I mean? There's no pumps anywhere. So when the power goes out, hang on. Yeah, so when the power goes out, which happens quite often, I will tell you. Doesn't affect the water at all. It's just coming down like off the mountains, right? It is a brilliant system. Lucky to be in the mountains, I'd say. Lucky to have some of the most wonderful water I've ever had. I've had some nice water over the years, you know, in the mountains, some areas of northern Ontario, all that. Yeah. Now we're in this area I really love. It's really open through here. Let's see if we can catch that. Still have to watch your footing though. Hang on. Yeah, still have to watch your footing because the trail's really wide here, right? It's relatively wide, let's say. But it's one step off the edge. Boom, 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 roll down you go. Well, you'd probably get stopped by trees and bushes and things, but if you didn't, that'd be a long way down. Yeah. Sure is nice. Maybe I'll flip it and we'll sign off. Yeah. Sure is nice. Anyway, hope everyone's doing well. Hope I didn't offend too many too badly with my little bit of ranting about water. It's a human right catastrophe. Anyway. Whatever. Anyway, I was requested to do this one. Hopefully it was worth watching. Okay, ciao, à la prochaine. Till the next time.